Revival isn't coming from somewhere else. It begins with you. This is Grace in the Journey. Welcome to Grace in the Journey. I'm so glad you're here today. This is a place of hope, healing, and restoration. Today we're going to begin a powerful series called Revival Starts With You. Because revival is not something that happens somewhere else to somebody else someday. Revival begins in you right here, right now. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, it says, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land." You notice what God says first. He doesn't say if the government changes. He doesn't say if the culture changes. He doesn't say if anyone else gets their act together. He simply says, if my people. Revival doesn't start out there. Revival starts in here. Revival is the personal before it is public. We often pray, God send revival. But revival isn't something that God pours out on prideful, distracted, or distant hearts. Revival comes to surrendered hearts. Revival begins when you recognize you need Him again, not just for salvation, but for daily strength. Psalms 51:10 says, "Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." David didn't pray, fix everyone else. He prayed, create in me a clean heart. Because see, revival starts when we stop pointing outward and start looking inward. It starts when you say, Lord, search me. Lord, refine me. Lord, renew me. Because revival begins when we become aware again. Because sometimes we don't realize how far we've drifted. Not away from God completely, but away from the intimacy with Him. We still believe, we still love Him, but we've grown tired, distracted, and numb. The fire that once burned brightly has become like a little small flicker. But here's the good news. God specializes in rekindling dying fire. In 2 Timothy 1:6, he says, "Fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you." Notice Paul did not say create a flame. He said fan into the flame, which is already there. Because the fire never left. It just needed oxygen again. That oxygen is prayer. That oxygen is surrender. That oxygen is returning to Him fully. Because revival begins with humility. Revival cannot exist where pride lives. Absolutely cannot. Because pride says, I'm fine. Humility says, Lord, I need you. James 4:8 says, come near to God and He will come near to you. God never moved. We did. But the moment you take one step toward Him, He meets you there. Not with shame, not with condemnation, but with open arms. Revival begins when you stop pretending you're strong enough on your own. Revival begins when you admit you were never meant to be. Revival begins with surrender. Because revival isn't emotional hype. It's spiritual surrender. It's saying, God, you can have my fear. You can have my disappointment. You can have my hurt. You can have my plans. God, you can have all of me. in Romans 12:1, it says to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Revival begins when you place yourself back on the altar. Not halfway, not just here, fully. Because God cannot revive what you refuse to surrender. Revival is not about perfection. It's about returning. Some people think that they've gone too far, drifted too long, and failed too much. But listen to me. Revival is not for perfect people. Revival is for returning people. Hear what Joel has to say in 2:13. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. God's not waiting to punish you. He's waiting to restore you. Revival begins the moment you return. Here's a big news flash. Revival doesn't start in stadiums. It starts in quiet moments. It starts in your prayer time. It starts in your surrender. And it starts in your willingness to say, God, start with me. You don't need a platform. You don't need permission. And you don't need perfection. All you need is willingness. Because when God revives one heart, he begins a ripple effect. And that ripple can change families. It can change communities. It can change lives. But first, he changes you. Habakkuk 3:2 says, Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day, in our time. Make them known. Lord, do it again. But this time, Father, start with me. Repeat this prayer with me right now. Father, revive my heart. Search me and remove anything that has distracted me from you. Renew my passion. Restore my fire. Help me to surrender fully and return completely. Let revival begin in me today. In Jesus' name, amen. Because revival isn't coming someday. Revival begins the moment you say yes to God again. And today, that moment can be now. This is Grace in the Journey. And remember, God is not finished with your story. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.